will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.
Munson here with the Good Morning Portugal show, the live stream and the podcast. How are you today? My goodness, what a weekend that was. And the backdrop, the green screen, the real authentic green screen is the right way around. A little bit of a curveball this morning. It was mirrored around the wrong way. There's all sorts of funny things going on in the foliage back there. Don't be surprised to see a kitten walking about and chewing on. Actually, yes. One of these new little kittens we've got in the house, and which absolutely coincided beautifully with the launch of Twitter's new name. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, one of them, I think his name's Sebastian. We seem to be sticking with Seb. He wanders about in the background there, which, will be hilarious, I think, one morning if he manages to get into the studio room and do that. He gets into the foliage, starts chewing it, and then throws up somewhere else in the house. Such fun. Get a little kitten, they said. It'll be beautiful, they said. And I was just a quick chat with Randy behind the scenes this morning, or toing and froing with a few memes and so on, and one about kittens and how or cats generally, actually. It's as though they have a button on their belly, isn't it? And you push the button on the belly, thinking, "Oh, he's really liking this," and then they just grab your hand and tear it up. Which I believe, if you were in sort of cat world, that would be a sign of affection. But it flipping hurts. Remember to wash your hands and apply colloidal silver or some similar antibacterial agent, because they get up to some nasty stuff. Cats, don't they? Anyway, good morning to you. How was your weekend? Mine was incredible. And glad to be here this morning, taking it a little bit easier this morning. I feel like this frog on the lily pad here. And this I saw over the weekend, Jomo, the joy of missing out. I think it's going to be one of those days today, feeling content with staying in and disconnecting as a form of self-care. If you had a weekend of that kind, well done you. We had a bit of a busy one. Not only Jomo and frogs or toads on lily pads in the pond. I retired. Have you seen this? There's a nap for that. Hey, very good. More like that to come throughout the morning. Pete's been busy. Great to meet you in person yesterday, along with all the fine, upstanding, men of the man cave. Well, not all of them, but a pretty good brace and a pretty good day yesterday for some of that man cave bingo and meeting people in real life who up until now, strangely, haven't met. This is after with some people knowing them for possibly 3 years now online, and only meeting, for example, yesterday, Andy, Lord Gilchrist, for the first time yesterday. Great to see you, Andy. It's great to see you, Pete, and meet you in real life. Good to see Kent and Carl and Mark, of course, as well from Nossa Quinta. Absolutely wonderful day yesterday, celebrating Lee's daughter's birthday, first birthday. Absolutely beautiful. Lee, thank you so much, Lee and Sandra. It was so lovely to meet you, Sandra, and Eve yesterday. She's so beautiful. You've seen photos of her on the morning show. She's absolutely delightful. Obviously got her mum's looks. And it was great to go to a little village in central Portugal. And Lee works and lives around the capital. So I was imagining we'd be heading towards the capital. Didn't really check it. I think there's somebody trying to get into the studio. Who's that? Oh, hello, Mrs. M. Yes, she has a special message for Senora Pato as well. We'll come back to that. Thinking we would be driving to the capital, but no, a different part of the country, a part where the extended McGrady family hang out, and it was, I can't even remember the name of it now, but quite near to Santarém, little village, and it was so Portuguese. It was so good to be reacquainted with what felt like central Portuguese life. I mean, it's a bit further south than, would it be called central there? I guess it would, just about. Repetejo, possibly, further over to the east from us. and in what might be called quarry country, very, very high elevations and views across the landscape, driving over there on quite a sort of back country road and into the village, and really authentic Portuguese life, just like I fell in love with some, what, 10, more than 15 years ago now. It was incredible. Really lovely to be in what felt like the heart of Portugal, and hang out with a lot of friends and Portuguese folks. It was superb. It was really superb. It was a lovely afternoon. So fantastic. Yeah, Pete saying, morning to Chris this morning. Hope you had a great weekend. You would have loved Eve's first birthday. It was lovely. Yeah, it would have been great to rub shoulders with you there as well, Chris, yesterday. So thank you so much, Lee, Sandra, and to little Eve for being born and having a first birthday. So brilliant yesterday. So little, it's great to be just taking it easy and hanging it out. Not hanging it out. I don't think we'll do that this morning. Hanging out this morning. Look who's here as well. We'll come back to the wise men of the Gunpocalypse and see what's going on. A lot of messages already this morning. Great to receive all of those, to get up, do this show, and to just walk in to an already fabulous atmosphere in the chat. Now, StreamYard say that there are some new emojis and so on. I think they have been adding some new features. One of which I'm going to try now, because I had to go in, and when I first started this morning, it was around that way. Which is a bit odd, isn't it? So let's have the backdrop unmirrored, and look. Should I try this? There is a new feature called Touch Up My Appearance, which to me, when me and Mrs. M were piddling about with it yesterday, it seemed to be like an Insta filter, almost like an Instagram for video. So I'm clicking on it now. Oh, and it slows things down, doesn't it? Let's see if that's bearable. It's made me laugh because it's given me what looks like I'm wearing foundation, and the craggy lines on my face. That's not touching up my appearance. That's accentuating the lines and grooves on the laughter lines. Nothing's that funny. I don't think I like this filter. It's a bit weird, isn't it? So I'm going to stop touching up my appearance, or having the little digital gremlins doing that behind the scenes. Do you know there are actually little people who live in your computer and do all the work, and sometimes they get a bit tired. So you can certainly see that on this show from time to time. Anyway, look who's here. Bom dia, criaturas. Guess what? I'm in Portugal and kicking off work life again. Well, you didn't mess about, Francis, so we'll be around more. Hope you're all good. It's been too long. And James, certainly very pleased to see you, as I am. Francis, a man cave style greeting. How's it going, Francis? So good to have you this side of the water. Absolutely wonderful. Oh, and a message for Pete, from Pete. We all owe you one, Carl and Louisa. Without you guys, we wouldn't have met and made such a glorious community. Very odd it has taken 3 years to get together. It is so odd. But we did have the day that got repeated for 2 years, didn't we? The pandemic lockdown. So we can be excused, I think. And then I suppose we got used to it, didn't we? We got used to thinking we knew each other without actually meeting. I don't think we're alone in that in this community. It's been a strange old time, and people who think they know each other haven't met in real life. But that's just the way of things in many ways, isn't it? And not just because of the pandemic and how we were kept apart, but also with the way we communicate now via Zoom and so on. And isn't it amazing how awful Zoom is technologically? I think it's terrible. But it's become the standard, hasn't it? It's definitely the VHS of comms platforms, isn't it? And it won out during the pandemic. We all know how much you like a good touch up in the morning, but not like that. That was weird. That was so weird, wasn't it? Great to have you here, Francis, Capricorn, Chris, Andy Klein. Great to see you. Came over to celebrate your 40th wedding anniversary. Oh, I've got to bring that picture up on screen. This is what do you say to somebody who's been married for 40 years? I'll tell you what you say. You say, wow, what's your secret? And turns out the secret for Andy and Lola, who I had the pleasure to meet Lola on Saturday evening. Yeah, and I didn't want to be too much of a third wheel or a gooseberry and crash their annual nuptial celebration. But I did want to pop along and buy him a drink at the pit stop, where I also tried. I got a takeaway po' boy sandwich. Look at that. That was delicious, with coleslaw and with a salad as well. That was delicious with ranch dressing on that. So fantastic to see you, Andy and Lola. And yeah, and the wedding anniversary advice. What a successful what is the secret of a successful marriage? Basically, was the question that was asked. And I thought I just downloaded the picture. It's gone again. Hold on a minute. Let me just grab this. Let me download it again. Yes, that seemed to work first time, but I can't locate it right now. Hold on. Let me just see if I can find it, because this is good. It's almost as if they're wedding celebrations or anniversary celebrations and advice were sponsored by Superboc. Here's some Portuguese vocabulary for you as well. So, as well as being anniversary, wedding, successful nuptial advice, this is what Andy said about it over on Learn About Portugal. Oh no, he said oh yeah, here we go. He said enjoying a beer together, and Andy noticed, sponsored by Superboc here, the proper attitude for a blissful marriage. The bottle on the right, of course, says "I'm sorry," and the bottle on the right says "I messed up." I don't think I can say, I might offend our Portuguese listeners, or would I? They don't. They seem to swear and use those words quite freely, I've noticed. But just in case any Portuguese grandmas are watching this morning, I won't say it out loud. But that on the right there, FIZM, it's got an asterisk, so you know it's naughty. And that is the Palmeira Cafe, of course, where we have our weekly meetup with the view of the sea behind there. I messed up, FIZMERDA there. So excellent stuff, and congratulations on 40 years of wedded bliss. And yeah, it's an amazing achievement, isn't it? Certainly in today's world, where people, you don't say anymore, well, you only get married once, because that's just not true anymore, is it? Well done, Andy and Lola, and lovely to see you. Great to have a beer with you at the pit stop, and great to try. Thanks, Bev and Dan, the Pole Boy sandwich for the first time. They were doing a roaring trade. And an amazing lady there with her 2 kids, who might be saying hi this morning as well, because one of the kids subscribed to Good Morning Portugal show. And I think if they're not too busy this morning, they might be saying hello, so we can say hello back in just a while. We have a Cane Sabia, we have a Deep Thought, no doubt, and a new feature from the T-Duck today, who, of course, is married to Senora Pato, whose birthday it is today. So parabéns a você, querida. Happy birthday to you, Mrs. Duck. Looking forward to celebrating with you later on this week as well. So have a great day, Senora Pato. Happy birthday to you. Fantastic. Who else is here this morning? Let's have a look. Oh, and thanks, T-Duck. Thanks to Ducks for pulling to one side the Portugal resident. It was the first column was published on Friday. So thank you very much for being subscribers to both the Portugal News and Portugal Resident in hard copy, and keeping those clippings for me. Lovely to see that on Friday. The Portuguese Paradox was my first piece, which got published, and link to it on Learn About Portugal, or go to Portugal Resident on Facebook. It's there, and somewhere on their website as well, portugalresident.com. Good morning to you, Coach Turner. We are really rattling our way towards 9 o'clock, where, of course, James will be joining us. And this morning, talking about borders. Oh, we could also talk about the PT3, hashtag PT3. This is something I'm toying with as well. 3 things about Portugal that we could talk about from time to time. You'll find it on goodmorningportugal.com on the homepage. A little form there. If we immortalize them, if we collect them, that data on what's your PT3. Actually, I can do this very quickly. If I download the picture again, actually. Yeah, what's your PT3? We've got this on learnaboutportugal.com as well, if you're involved over there. The question being, just 3 quick things to get the conversation started about Portugal. And I think we'll come up with some interesting findings with this as well. 3 quick questions about you, basically, and Portugal. Portuguese positive people, please. A Portuguese positive, a Portuguese problema, and a Portuguese possibility. Mine at the moment are a Portuguese positive. And I saw this yesterday in the beautiful part of Portugal where we'd ended up yesterday. And I would not have gone there if not had I been invited by Lee for the birthday celebrations. But it was the light. The light of this country is something I love so much, and didn't really realize that. On was it Saturday evening or Friday evening, we went to Salgado Beach, and the light, I took a beautiful picture of Mrs. M, a new portrait for her work as an astrologer, Feel Good Astrology. She's using it. The light, the evening light by the sea, the evening light inland yesterday was so beautiful. I love that about Portugal. That's my Portuguese positive for this morning. Portuguese problema continues to be running a business here. And I won't start moaning about that now. But yeah, running a business is not great. And I would have that as my Portuguese problema. And my possibility, my possibility definitely is a festa grande para estrangeiros, this foreigners festival, which I hope we'll have one of these days as well, when we bring all the people of different nations here in Portugal together for a massive festa and enjoy the food and the music and the booze of those cultures. And what's yours? What is your hashtag PT3 this morning? Talking to James N at 9 about borders as well. We'll be having a look at borders. Here's a couple of border pics. Portugal-Spain border, which is my question. Learn about Portugal this morning as well. Spain doing somewhat a better job there in terms of road surface. I think you'll agree. Nearest to us in the picture. And on the other side, is that one of those wonderful Toyota pickup trucks on the other side, or is that a Range Rover? I can't quite see. And that's Portugal on the other side. It's as simple as that at some parts of the border. That's very straightforward, isn't it? And if you want it more exciting than that, making the move from Spain over to Portugal, you can do it by zip wire as well. And we'll be looking at borders all around the world. And what are they good for? Borders, it's very interesting, isn't it? We kind of born into them, literally, aren't we? We're born into borders. We have them all around the world. Some of them are very easygoing and exciting like this. Others are a little bit more contentious and have been weaponized, it would seem, in the last little while. So we've got some border talk, as well as James's continued observations as an American here in Portugal. Need a quick cough and a sip of tea? Do excuse me. Look, Senora Pato bought me this mug. This is my cat, my ironic cat. I have to say, it is my ironic cat mug. It's not one I would have bought myself, Mrs. M, although I'm very pleased and delighted that you bought it for me. And it has tea with honey in, which is what my voice feels like I think it needs this morning. So how was your weekend? That's what Frank's was looking at like. Of course, we spoke to Frank on Friday. That was great fun. We were reminded, always when speaking to Frank, life is good. And that was his prescription for the beach. Oh, full moon over the weekend as well. I joined Mrs. M on our astrology show yesterday, and Owen sent this in to us as well. That's a great shot, isn't it? Of the full moon, the pretty bulgy one. Not an astrological term, and a term that I used yesterday on Mrs. M's astrology show. Okay, let's get into that chat then this morning and see who else is here to be welcomed. Jim White, great to see you, Jim. How are you? Excuse me, that tea went down the wrong way just then. Great to see you, Jim. Great to see you, Coach Turner. Bom dia, todos, e bem-vindo a uma nova semana. Check you out. You've been to Greece and you've come back speaking Portuguese. Back to some sort of normality this week. Got to be kidding, right? This is so much the not normal community. No disrespect intended. Anyway, back to some sort of normality, of course, this week for Coach Turner. So child wrangling today, though, will include coffee with number 2 son. How about that this morning? How lovely for you. Weather update in one word, garbage. Sorry to hear that. Over there in the UK. And I think you continue here, Coach Ten. Yes, you do, with the God Squad tip of the day. I was with the in-laws over the weekend, who are vegetarian. I was surprised by how little they eat compared with Mrs. T. Oh, and I. But they are healthy enough. They also enjoy a tipple. It got me thinking about how much food we really need to live a healthy life. Probably not as much as we eat, right? And I'm certain that I could reduce my intake. But that's the thing, isn't it? It's such fun. So much of our fun in life does seem to revolve around eating lovely things, as we did yesterday. The great food, barbecue yesterday, and lovely home-cooked, with love, Portuguese food yesterday. And I certainly overindulged myself yesterday. However, I'm also about enjoying life, so I don't think I'm changing. So take that. Yeah, well, I'm sure we all, it's a delightfully first world problem, if you like, isn't it? The honor and privilege we have of being able to eat pretty much what we like whenever we want to eat it. And there is perhaps a shadow and dark side to that. And very lucky we are too. And we can be grateful for each morsel and mouthful, can't we? Coach Turner, thank you very much. Just before 8 o'clock and around 8 o'clock, T-Duck was in with the Bon Dia Alegria Gumpers. Cheers, T-Duck. And with Semana Novinha right in the thick of it, not far from the papal goings on. How's it looking, T-Duck, from that point of view? Having the Pope in town. A lot going on. A lot of Lisboetas leaving town. A lot of people from around the world, especially youths, the youngers, as they're called here in Portugal, making their way towards Lisbon and Cascais for the papal visit. Bordalo too, that was quite the artwork installation, wasn't it? Rolling out a carpet at Fatima, I believe. Or was it on up to the sermon site in Lisbon? It might have been in Lisbon, mightn't it, where Bordalo too laid out a red carpet of 500 euro bills up to the sermon point, I think. It's not called a sermon point, isn't it? It's definitely like a Sermon on the Mount for sure. Looking up to the Pope, as many will be doing, and Bordalo too making a bit of a point as well in the last few days. Not without its controversy, of course, but certainly a lot of love for the Pope and a lot of people arriving in Portugal and Lisbon to be in his company this coming week. Semana Novinha from T-Duck with a deep thought then, and that would be pray for me. We have Pope Damasus I, and I think we can put a picture of him up as we say the deep thought from Damasus. Not looking entirely happy. Will the deep thought be a clue to his demeanor here, I wonder? Pray for me that I may be able to look beyond immediate popularity and fleeting favors and choose to do the things that God wants me to do. Well, that picture does go very well with that quote, that deep thought of the day, doesn't it? And very good it is too, I would say. Yes, eschewing popularity and looking good on Instagram. Pope Damasus I would rather be guided by God and not be too bothered about the concerns of the man-made world there. That's how I'm taking it. Anyway, thank you for that, T-Duck, this morning. And I believe we talk more about Damasus here. Yes, we do. Pope Damasus I was the Bishop of Rome. No bashing here, please. From October 366 until his death. He presided over the Council of Rome. I thought that was one of those conspiracy theory things. The Council of Rome, one of those organizations which we should be a little bit wary of, but perhaps not. The Council of Rome of 382 that determined the canon, the official list of sacred scripture. Pope Damasus is considered by some to be the very first Portuguese pope, although Portugal was still part of the Roman Republic when he was most likely born in Guimarães in 305. His life coincided with the rise of Emperor Constantine I and the reunion and redivision of the Western and Eastern Roman empires. It was all go, wasn't it, in those days, which is associated with the legitimization of marijuana. No, of Christianity. Associated with the legitimization of Christianity. Damasus faced accusations of murder. What? And okay, let's just go back quickly then to his deep thought. Pray for me that I may be able to look beyond immediate popularity and fleeting favors and choose to do the things that God wants me to do. Okay, good. However, in his lifetime, Damasus faced accusations of murder and adultery in his early years as Pope. Sounds like he might have cleaned up his act, however. Edward Gibbon writes, the enemies of Damasus styled him Aurosculpius Matronarum, the lady's ear scratcher. The lady's ear scratcher. Come here, I want to scratch your ear. It's not the best chat-up line in the world, let's be honest. The veracity of these... Get off! The veracity of these claims has come into question. What's wrong with just a bit of sniffing? The veracity of these claims has come into question, with some suggesting that the accusations were motivated by a conflict with the supporters of Arianism. Well, it was all kicking off in those days, wasn't it? I think it was just a bit of bad PR, perhaps, calling him the lady's ear scratcher. Ladies! Well, there, we present to you Emperor. No, not Emperor Constantine I, but Damasus. Pope Damasus, possibly born in Guimarães. Excellent stuff this morning. I believe the quesadillas this week will be of a papal kind this morning. So thank you very much, T-Duck, for that. Excellent stuff. Okay, we are limbering up. Oh my goodness, it's 8:57. I can't believe it already. And we've got a brace of dad jokes from T-Duck as ever. Yeah, very good. Very good. Oh my goodness, not really a papal one, but a dad joke that takes the church as its context there. Oh, a new feature today. Let's have a look at this. Brand new feature today from the T-Duck. Thank you very much for this. Never one to let the grass grow. An exciting new feature from T-Duck today. Things we tell our kids. Okay, or actually not just things, but lies we tell our kids. I'm sorry, this is one. I wonder if T-Duck had to experience this as a child. I'm sorry, they don't sell replacement batteries for that toy. Oh, that's a bit sad. But fortunately, if that was your fate as a child, we do have a former, not physiotherapist, but a therapist of the mind and spirit and soul, sucker for the soul. James will be here in a few minutes. If that happened to you and you're not over it yet, it's a bit like the ice cream van one, isn't it? You know, when the ice cream van is playing music, they've run out of ice cream, or they don't sell ice cream when it gets too hot because it all melts. Those sorts of things that parents tell children. And isn't this is what I suppose this new feature is about? These are the things that we tell our children en passant that can actually shape their personalities. So I think we should have a helpline, as well as this new feature. We should have a helpline for anyone struggling with any of the issues that we mentioned. James can do this himself when we see him in just a moment, and he can take full responsibility for his own dad jokes as well. Let's just say those last few good mornings that were in the chat this morning that I haven't looked at yet. Good morning, everyone. Andy, yes, great to see you, Andy. Chris is in. You're on the train, Chris. Owen is in with a full moon for us as well. Always like to see your full moons, Owen. It's a beauty, isn't it? What goes on up there? Isn't it amazing? Old Elon wants to get to Mars, but why haven't we gone back to the moon yet? I did see a clip, a NASA clip. They destroyed all the technology, apparently, so they can't do it anymore. Even though I've got more technology in my phone, I think, than they had in them days, getting up there to the moon. Why haven't we been back? A serious question. Why haven't we been back up there? Yesterday would have been a great day. It was full. You wouldn't have to land on just a tiny little bit of a slip of a moon, a crescent moon. You had the whole moon to land on last night. There's my grasp of astronomy for you. Okay, who else is here this morning? And we will greet wholeheartedly. Antonio F. Bon dia todos. Excellent to see you. And so good to see you here, Francis. Fantastic. And you're already back at work. Incredible. Welcome, Francis, from Antonio and from Pete as well. Lovely to see you, Francis, especially in Festa season. I think you just missed, didn't you, San João? Jean is here as well. Jean, great to see you. Hola, bon dia todos. Feliz segunda-feira. We've got the Learn About Portugal quiz question of the day to come. Nubianet also with us. Oh, Nubianet, what time is it for you? Hey, Antonio F. and Slug, hand pink waving. That didn't come out quite as it was meant to on the screen there. Jim White in Porto. Bon dia todos. When are we going to meet each other again, Jim? Talking of get-togethers, as we were, and the Man Cave Bingo. Good Man Cave Bingo yesterday. And skiing. What's this about skiing? Lovely. You'll have to come here. Oh, I think I've missed a bit of context here. I should be there in February to see what winter is like. Lovely, says Pete. You'll have to come and have a ski. Ski? Oh, yes. We do that here in Portugal as well. We've got the Vodafone Ski Resort. Vodafone, that was a little plug for you. If you do want to give me any extra minutes. Actually, I did change my plan. And I've got it strapped down, as it were, to a very good plan with lots of gigas now. When I went in to do a little bit of business with Vodafone, they offered me the best contract I've ever had, actually, where I don't think my kids are going to be able to run up massive data bills when we're out and about. Got a good deal on that. It's still not cheap, I've got to say, compared to what I was used to in the UK, but it's much better than it was. So thank you, Vodafone, for that. And yes, we wouldn't mind a trip up to the Vodafone ski resort at some point. I think we're going to have to do more of these hellos when James joins us, because it's 9:01 now. What a sight first thing in the morning. That's the big full moon, not me with my touch-up filter, which I don't think is one of the better features that StreamYard have announced here. But have they given us new emojis and responses in the chat yet? They were saying there's something coming along like that as a development, and also that guests, sometimes when you're a guest on the Good Morning Portugal show, you might like to contribute to what's going on in the chat. Hasn't been possible until now. Apparently it's coming up. It may have already happened. Let's play his music for him. It's here somewhere. Oh, here it is. Let's play some music for James, and he'll be right back here with me after this.
Bom dia!
Olá, bom dia, alegria, tudo bem?
Sim, tudo, e tu?
Muito bem, muito bem. Um pouco cansado hoje.
Again, I keep forgetting the word for again.
Oh, yeah, what is the word for
Or
again?
maybe ainda would work. Ainda, still.
Yes. I just need to get used to it, don't I? It's the new normal. It's the new normal on a Monday. Me asking you, how was your weekend? And you saying, what's that? You asking me how I am. I'm bloody knackered from the weekend, mate.
I'm tired. You and Forrest.
I'm not running like Forrest this morning, that's for sure. Oh, excellent to see you. And you're rocking out with your theme tune there, I noticed.
Yeah, a little air guitar this morning.
Very good.
I really do enjoy the tune, and I especially enjoy the fact, well, not especially, but additionally enjoy the fact that it's called Redwood Highway. So it's so appropriate, and it's a lovely little piece of music. So perfect.
I tend to do that when I'm looking for music that I'm able to use on YouTube and provided by YouTube and the many wonderful musicians who make their music available free for that purpose. I tend to look literally, for what will work, and I remember looking up Redwood and being delighted to see that it isn't just the name of your favorite tree, perhaps, and the habitat of the slug. It really works, doesn't it? It's a lovely little uplifting tune there. So we're very grateful.
Yes,
to the composer of Redwood Highway there.
Well done, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know what the incentive is. I mean, maybe it might be complete altruistic musical behavior, or at some point they monetize. I really don't know, or it's a way of getting the music out there. I don't know, but we're very grateful to you, whoever.
Yeah,
you are.
well, it certainly is a means of exposure.
Yeah,
that otherwise people might not hear it if they give it out for free and it's used. Then people will hear it, and some may go, "Huh, I like that. Whose music is that?"
Right, and perhaps there is more we could do on that basis rather than just mention it en passant there. So I'm going to look that up. If I can't find out today who the actual composer is so that we can say thank you to them personally.
Mindful Monday with James theme song by.
Yeah, exactly.
A byline.
Or maybe we even get them on the show one of these days. That would be amazing. That would be wonderful to do that. Oh, and find out why they were inspired to write about the Redwoods.
There you go.
We'll do a bit more work on that, because I think it's always a little bit lame when musicians get offered that. Well, it will be some exposure for you. They and their family are starving. And it's like, here's a little bit of exposure for you. Yes. So let's see what we could do for the composer of that tune there. So have you been? What reflections do you have? And did you like this new feature, the things we tell our children, which of course they can take very seriously, can't they?
Yes, well, and I came up with sort of the dark side of that one. I appreciate the humor always, but it's like, what lies we tell our children? Santa Claus, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, all the
stop spoiler alert.
No children listening. This is primarily an adult following, right?
You know that there's going to be someone here who's going to be devastated. This
Like,
the Gumper.
Mommy!
A Gumper.
Oh, no.
Get the memo. Right.
Oops.
You better be available after the show, James, on Zoom that we mentioned before. Yeah,
However, I do have a caveat to that, which is that if we use those things as stories we tell our children, then they're not lies. Exactly. They're stories, right?
Yes.
So a lot of it's in the delivery and how it's interpreted. If a child says, "Is there such thing as Santa Claus?" It's like most things, especially complex things, it involves more than a 3-word reply. It's not going to work if you want to be honest about it.
And you've got to get your timing right, haven't you? Because as a serious parent, on occasion, you might say, "I'm glad you asked me that. Why don't we sit down and talk about it?" And quite often,
like, "Oh no, the bad news is coming."
Or like, "No, I don't want to sit down and talk about it. I just need an answer. Quick! I just need an answer, Dad. Yes or no?" So, no.
Because works really well with all the why questions. Why is the sky blue? Because, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Like, I don't care. I just need a quick answer. However, I think you're absolutely right. When the timing is right, when the age of the child is right, and you can have those fantastic conversations of, well, we did used to say to you X, but actually it's a bit more complicated than that, and it's more like Y in every sense of the sound of that word. Why don't we chat about it? That can be so educational, can't it? It's like, well, when you were younger, we kept it simple, and it's probably best, isn't it, to keep things very simple for small children, rather than try and show off your intellect and grasp of mythology. And then there comes an age, doesn't there, when that can be magical. It's like, well, we did say yes, he existed, or yes, he or she, or rabbits and bunnies didn't, and fairies and so on. But why don't we look at that together? Why do human beings do that? And that's magical, isn't it? Why do we have myth and magic, and what beauty can come from that? So I do get it. Why some parents are very hard line about this. I'm not lying to my children. I'm not going to tell them this right from
the get over it.
That's right. But I guess it's so time appropriate and context and situation appropriate, and that's that's the same for everything, really, isn't it? Comes a time and place where the magic of talking about magic can be experienced by us.
Well, I read a really helpful article years and years ago, back when my first child was still an infant, that made a ton of sense to me around this question of, is it okay to lie to your children in some cases, and what about Santa Claus, that kind of thing. Yeah. And it wasn't really suggestion, but it was a description of an individual approach. And they said, our approach has been to relate these things to stories. So we read stories, and in our mind, they're real. And we can imagine we're a fairy princess, or we're this or that, and we can dress up and we can behave, and it can be very real to us.
Yes.
And Santa Claus is that. Santa Claus is a story that we tell. That it can be alive, it can be made up, it can be whatever you have it be. Now, that's a little more complex for a 2-year-old than a 5-year-old, maybe. But along that line, it's a fun story that we tell ourselves to enjoy the season. And then you have all your explanations for why there's so many Santas ringing bells on the street corners and all the other stuff that goes on. You said, well, they're all part of the story. The story is to appreciate and enjoy this season.
Yes.
That to me made a ton of sense. So I don't think I spoiled my child's experience of Christmas because of that.
Right. And it can be so beautiful to see the child's grasp of the world develop with that as well. As the penny is dropping, that doesn't need necessarily to be the end of childhood, does it? That can just be a nice transition from the sort of somewhat naive grasp of life into a more worldly grasp, which is what you'd hope to do as a parent, really, isn't it? It's like, okay, I'm seeing a Santa on every street corner, like you say, and in every shop. There seems to be more than one here. What's going on? And it's like you can see the penny dropping for kids, can't you? Like they know something is not quite as it first was with this particular myth, legend, and story. And it's a teachable moment, isn't it? It's a teachable, and we don't always have to say it's like this. It can be, well, what do you think it is? And the wide-eyed realization, or I suppose the transition from just that wide-eyed naivety and beauty that we can still enjoy at our age as expats and visitors to a new country, for example, can be there. It's a timeless, eternal thing, isn't it? And you can see this with your kids. And that's what you want them to do, isn't it? Is go from being completely innocent and wide-eyed to having a little bit of worldly wisdom so they can be streetwise and grow up safely.
Yeah, and there's a stage in there where it's sheer terror.
Yep.
So is it okay to traumatize your child over a lie about Santa Claus? Like, well, that's a bigger question. No, go sit on his lap. No, you told me not to talk to strangers. Whatever.
That's a funny story between me and my mother. We were out it must have been a December in London, and I was far too old for sitting on Santa's lap. But that is what happened, because I saw a Santa's grotto that I thought I might quite still be at an age where I could enjoy a walk through Santa's grotto. The Principios in Portugal, those nativity scenes. I thought it was that. But the climax of it was having to sit on Santa's lap. And I was a little bit too big. And I think he thought that as well. But still, we went through the whole ritual. Had I been good? Was I? And was I likely to?
Well, Santa, good is really relative, and it's a function of our imagination.
Right, yeah.
How
And
would
why
you
are you
define good in this context?
exactly? And stop scratching my ear. Anyway,
That's right.
the lady's ear scratcher, huh? We learned something this morning, didn't we? Here we go. Andy Klein, we handled a Santa that way with our daughter, but wow, did that cause problems when she just? Oh yes, somebody's got to be that parent as well, haven't they? Who
Yes.
ruined it for everybody else.
Just say yes and leave it alone.
Why do the Kleins have to do that?
That's right. They're so smart, those guys. They always have to explain things from honesty.
Why can't I just stop? Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, excellent stuff. We are looking forward to more of these tea ducks. Thank you very much. The lies we tell our children. Oh, this is triggering in a good way, I hope, or releasing, because triggering has changed its meaning so much, hasn't it, in the last few years? My brother was determined not to teach his kids about Santa. His wife grew up in Japan when she was little, so no Santa. What? That's so cruel to Japanese children. Anyway,
what's the matter with those people who aren't exactly like us?
But they read the story at daycare, and he insisted that Santa was real. Brother's plan ended.
Well, see, from my position, and again, this is not a conversation you can generally have very easily with a 3-year-old, but if we believe something is real, it's real to us.
Yeah, right.
If you're schizophrenic, you're very real. You're literally involved in the world that no one else can see. Yes. But it's real for you. If you're sick and it's psychosomatic, it doesn't make the illness less real for you. Mm-hmm. It's just, what's the cause? Is it a virus or is it a thought? You're still sick, right? So defining reality, I think the great thing to do with a child is, well, what do you think? What do you believe? Do you believe Santa is real? Well, then he's real to you, isn't he?
Have the conversation. Have the conversation. Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do every Monday. Nice little segue there.
No, Dad, but I mean, is he real?
Okay, enough now. Let's just go get let's just go
whatever you think.
Whatever that guy said on a Monday morning. All right. So what else has been on your mind, James, in this last little while? We're going to talk about borders. And as soon as I saw the article about the many borders of the world, from volleyball courts to waterfalls, 45 interesting country borders from across the globe. We won't look at all 45, but Spain and Portugal's in there, and others people might recognize. I thought that's a James thing, like you are here. Borders aren't real, except like Santa. They kind of are, aren't they? They have.
If we believe they're real, right?
Exactly. And that's how they work, isn't it? Because lots of people come together to make them so, and then behave as if they are so, and relate to them in a very realistic way. I mean, try crossing some borders, and you'll soon find out that they're pretty real in the minds of other people. Others, there is no great sense that they're real. You could just walk back and forth and just keep doing it and notice no discernible change. So I thought it was quite a James Holley kind of conversation and multifaceted, but I'm sure
I really appreciate you throwing that one at me at 10:30 at night when I was going to bed.
Oh, did it keep you up?
I flipped through it, but it's like, if Carl wants to have an intelligent conversation about this, it would have been nice to have a little more prep time with it.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought you might look at it over your morning coffee, but that's a bit too short a lead time for you, isn't it? You like a bit more of a run up than me, I think.
Oh yeah. Definitely, I like to kind of prepare things and work it out, and I can be spontaneous. When we just spent how much time talking about, is Santa Claus real? I didn't need any prep time for that. So,
well, I think some of the images of this article are great as well. And
the thing that came up for me, again, mostly because of my background, is I said, well, to be honest, I was not that interested in borders. So then the pun guy comes out. Oh, I was bored with borders. Ha ha ha. It's like, all right, leave that one alone. But boundaries to me is an important dynamic, and boundaries apply to borders in many, many different ways. So that's something I said, I could talk about that without any preparation if that's what it came to. But quite frankly, I'm still a little bit miffed, I guess, about some of the stuff that happened last week. And it's like, oh, you're going to be accused of being a snowflake or, trying to raise controversy or whatever. I said, well, that's fine. I don't do that very often. And
so you get 3 goes.
That's right. Yeah. So the thing for me was, it was all about complaining, and I have very little tolerance for complaining. And I think that's because I've done a lot of work myself. Like, I recognize the complainer in me, and I don't want to spend a lot of time with him. So complaining in general is just like, I think I'll go somewhere else now. Like, if I'm hanging out with someone who all they do is complain, I just stop hanging out with them. It's like, no, thank you. I don't want to be stuck in that world. Right. But the complaints were specifically about Portuguese people in Portugal. And I found it hurt my heart. I didn't take it personally, but it's like, I love this culture. I love this country. And here's people coming from this entitled position with no awareness that it's an entitled position, saying, why don't they just do it this way instead of that way? What's the matter with them? And it specifically came around, people taking care of a lot of business at the Multibanco, and people who are waiting, talking in line. And the comment was, why don't they just do that at home? It's so much easier. And I go, well, that's pretty privileged and entitled. That assumes they have a computer. That assumes they have access to Wi-Fi and technology. That assumes that they understand how to use the technology. There are a lot of assumptions in that question. And basically you're saying, why don't they do it the way I would do it? And yet you're the one who's standing complaining that you have to wait in line because they're not doing it that way. It's like, what? That really got me. You can see the internet. It just really got me at how
I had no idea.
egocentric that was, and assumptive that it was. And I understand making jokes, and Portuguese people are the first to make jokes about their culture and the way things go. I don't have a problem with that, but it felt like bullying to me. It's like, really? What's the matter with them? Go home and do it the right way, you stupid people, was the energy behind it. And it's just like, oh, stop that. You're not in Kansas. I did that, all caps. You're not in Kansas anymore.
Yep, absolutely.
Stop it, you idiot. Yes. So there's that energy. That's 2, right? So I have 2 strikes on delivering that energy on the show.
Yes.
But in a mindful way, complaining is basically attachment. It's basically wanting something to be different than it is. Yes. I don't want those people to take that time in the Multibanco line. I want them to behave differently. The entitlement is, I want them to behave the way I'm used to, and that works for me. So they should do it my way. And that takes it a step further than just a complaint. And entitlement is another one that irritates me. And when I look at, all right, so what's that? What is that about me that's getting triggered? I guess it just works. Maybe it is that I was raised with an idea that I'm entitled to shit. It's like, so
you're not.
Yeah, that I'm not.
When other folks are just really open and clear about,
why don't I get this just because I'm me? I'm going, get the hell away from me.
Yeah, I never had that.
So exactly. It's like, I never thought that just because I'm me, I should be able to have it the way I want it. That position of I'm entitled to it. Why are you entitled to it? Because I'm me. That chafes me. And I think it's because it reminds me that I was not brought up that way. And in some ways, because of how I took criticism, that's the snowflake in me. The idea that people believe that they're entitled to things just kind of rubs me the wrong way. So when I hear people behaving that way, that's how I react. And I said months and months ago on, I think it was an Expats Portugal webinar where we were talking to people who were considering coming over, and we were being asked to consider what they might be grumpy about or complain about. My response was, if you come here expecting it to be the way it is where you are, you're going to be sorely disappointed. and you're going to be angry about it a lot. So you really need to take a look. Am I willing to adapt to the environment I'm going to, or should I just stay put or find another place that suits me better? All of those to me are the options. So that's the solution to my complaint, is look at it and make some choices about where you're going to be, rather than standing here now saying this sucks and you suck and I wish you were different than you are. Like,
all great merchandise ideas.
So that's essentially, that's the essence of my rant about that. I just needed to get it out. It's like, I'm tired of it.
Glad you did. No, I'm so glad you did. It's not over. This isn't over, is it? It needs to be a continuing conversation. And I will be, one of my columns will definitely, this is a recurring theme for me, and I want to write about it, is when is it okay to criticize the country you're coming into? There's an art to that. And I have changed my view. We have these sort of curves, don't we? Or progressions, like the stages of grief. I think there are definite stages of migration and how you are as a person in that curve. And I would never want to say ever anything negative for quite a long time. And then I become, time passes, doesn't it? And I think I became more emboldened over time, and perhaps more realistic and practical, and having more experience in a new country. And
I think the truth about realistic is that whatever your opinion is, it's based on your experience. It's not a truth. It's not the way things are. It's what you have experienced.
Yeah.
So if you can introduce those what are being thrown out as complaints as, well, in my experience, this and this and this have happened, and that's caused me to feel this way about it. To me, I don't have a problem with that. I don't consider that criticizing somebody else. You're just saying I'm struggling with the experience that I'm having. And everybody has
so
that.
Much to do about communication, isn't it? Because what I think you're talking about there is owning something, isn't it? Rather than expressing it in such a way that makes other people wrong. Now we can assume, I think, can't we, that some people aren't as mindful perhaps in their communication as others, and if they put it differently, they might be listened to differently. I suppose that's the essence of communication, isn't it? And that what they might have, as if they owned it as a legitimate observation that they would like to be heard and taken seriously, and ask the question, can something be done about this, is compromised, isn't it, by having it as a pitch that might sound like bullying, as you put it, or entitlement, or something else. And in fact, it's exactly the same person having exactly the same experience, but their description of it and communication of it shows us here, doesn't it, how important it is in how we communicate and express ourselves if we want something to change or we want some help, for example.
Yes. Well, and again, I'm all about asking ourselves the question to wake us up. So why am I so upset about this? It's a great question to ask when you're getting upset.
Yeah.
What's upsetting me?
Yeah.
Well, they're doing all their paperwork on the multibanco. Well, they're not the only one, and they probably the only one. In my experience, again, here in Portugal, that's happened to me exactly once in a year and a half.
Yeah.
So is it really something I need to complain about every time I talk about multibancos?
Yes.
Like, why is that so upsetting to me? And my guess is it looks something like, well, because I forgot to take care of my shit at home and do it on my computer, and now I'm stuck behind this damn line, and I have to wait for all these people who are just talking to each other and not doing anything. That's why I'm upset about it. Like, it really has nothing to do with them. It has to do with, I have this sense of urgency and need to move on, and they're not doing that. They're not accommodating me. That's what I'm upset about. So now I'm going to stand here and complain about how stupid, the Portuguese way is, because those Portuguese do it that way. And that, to me, borders on racism, nationalism, whatever kind of ism you want to throw on it. The implication is your way is wrong and my way is right. And I think that's what's got the whole world stuck in the problem that it exists now, is we're not having the conversations of what do I choose to do about it in a way that's constructive. I just want to complain about it and make you wrong.
So much in here, because I think by your own admission, you owned your reaction to that, didn't you? Which is the inference, not the implication, to be sort of pedantic. and what could have been what could have been that experience, as Bobby put it, is different to him compared to how you received it and how you've generalized it as a talking point, for example. And again, that's the importance of the conversation, isn't it?
Well, that was just a launch point, right? It wasn't strictly that conversation. It was that and many other conversations like it I have heard along the way. And every time I go, stop it, you idiot. Right? So, stop it, you idiot. So it just brought it up again. I said, okay, I want to address this so that I can, let's let it go.
And you also owned your how it's a thing for you, possibly as well. Why, like you just said, why is that so upsetting to me? And that's just so rich and powerful and useful, isn't it? If we dare to go there, and I think I hope is a wonderful aspect of our mindful migration Mondays and our community generally, is like this isn't just how it is, how I think it is. We're having the conversations about how we think it is and what that might mean for me, it's a matter of the sort of betterment of our relationship as foreigners in this country. And I increasingly, each time I see, like I did in the Portugal news over the weekend, even more foreigners coming to Portugal. That's why it's such an important conversation to have, isn't it? Our what we make jokes about and what we have fun about, and comments that are made in passing. Occasionally very useful to have a little pit stop on those and have a look at what's going on, because with nearly 1 in 10 people in Portugal a foreigner, these things I think are important and will be increasingly important as well.
Yes, and as an example, because you asked the question, when does it become okay to criticize? And constructive criticism is, to me, really the most valuable criticism, and it implies that there's a solution to whatever the problem might be from your perspective. Yes. But again, the approach, if you come in and say you're doing that wrong, you need to do it this way, you're going to get a much different response than, I've experienced the Portuguese government around taxation to be kind of this way. Like in my personal experience with taxes, I experienced this, and this. I'm talking to a Portuguese. Has that been your experience, or is your experience different than mine? Yeah. So now I've expressed a dissatisfaction with the way it's been handled, but I haven't said to the Portuguese person, your country, your government is wrong. Yes. And I'm appealing to them for their experience with it as the expert to inform me while registering the fact that I'm not very happy with this thing. So it doesn't come off like your country is stupid and my way is better.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And it takes a very broad-shouldered Portuguese person to not take that personally and to say, is what you're trying to say this? Okay.
But if you're asking them what's your experience been, that's easy. Yeah. It's like, no, I've never experienced that. Or, oh, yeah, that happens all the time. And then they'll like buddy up with you and have a nice complaining session with you. But they're initiating that, right? It's not like the foreigners coming in and telling me what's wrong with my country. He's just joining me when I'm telling him what's wrong with my country. And there's a difference there. Okay. And it still gets registered. It still gets discussed. I just want to mention, because I know we need to wrap up, that I made it kind of a joke during this whole multi-banco thing. And Bobby said, why don't they just do it at home? And in my mind, I instantly went into this little comedy skit. And it's, the foreigner standing in the multi-banco line. It would make a great little 2-panel comic. Standing in the multi-banco line, looking at the people chatting and the old woman with her, pile of paperwork at the machine, and saying, why don't they just, there you go. Yeah. And you see that and you go, oh boy.
Oh my God. Here we go.
And for me, my choice is I'll go do my shopping now and check back later. And every time they're gone and the line's gone by the time I'm done. So it's like I do it at one end or the other. To me, that's a solution that works most of the time. So I don't have to complain about it. It's like, not right now. I'll check back later. And if not, I'll go across the street or next door to them or any one of the 55 multi-bancos that are available within a block of where I'm standing right now. It's like, it's not that hard. Anyway, the imagination went to, here's the foreigner looking at that, making some snide remark to, why can't they just do this at home? It would be so much easier. And then in the other panel is the Portuguese people in line having the conversation, saying, if that's so important to that foreigner, why doesn't he just do it at home where it's so much simpler? It's like all about the perspective, right?
It is. And that, yeah, well, one day we may well have a cartoon series. We have skillful people in our community. You're the script writer. I guess maybe someone will step forward to bring that to life as these little vignettes of Portuguese life. I haven't put this on the screen for a very long time. He's the Frasier of migration, James Holley. Any mindful migration questions? You have been more Frasier than you've ever been this morning, I think, with that level of animation and
maybe
the little roller coaster ride. Okay, caller, I'm listening. And move on now from a little rant there. And we'll return to that question. The one about when is it okay to complain, and I suppose that might be a bit clickbaity, mightn't it? Because actually the real question is how. What's meant by that and how might we go about it. So I think there's a rich theme there, and it has a triggered or prompted inspired comment in the chat, as you might expect. So let's have a look at a few of those.
Yeah, I was going to call it complaining about complaining.
Right. I mean, that's what it is this morning, quite possibly. Hitting the like button. Thank you very much, Antonio F. And good morning, everybody. From João F as well. João Ferreira is here.
And I just want to take one moment here with both of those friends of mine on the screen. I appreciate you. I love you. I am thrilled to be friends with you. And I don't say that often enough or with enough enthusiasm. And I want you to know here and now, straight from my mouth, I love having you as friends. Thank you for your friendship.
Me add verdad, certo as well there. And yes, we really do appreciate you. I'm going to make that a royal we here, Antonio F and João F. And no smutty jokes about royal we's, please, Peter. But yeah, great to have you in our community.
May I go we? Oh, all right. Wee! It's some British comedy sketch I saw years ago and never forgot. Yes.
Clearly. Yeah, thank you, Antonio and João F. Not related as far as we know. And thank you for bothering with us over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Putting up with our complaints.
James, Portugal has one of the very best internet coverages in Europe. Americans are kind of spoiled by coverage. Portugal is great compared to rural France, Italy, and Germany. And Mr. S asking of you, Pete, do you live in a quinta? Pete says, not answering that question, but making the point that multi-banks are really cool, not just for fishing licenses, not just for fishing licenses with the residency card. I don't think that's the strap line they use, multi-banco, not just for fishing licenses.
That would be good.
It would, wouldn't it? You can do all sorts. You really can on there. And actually, one of my favorite memories, actually, of feeling Portuguese was helping an old lady, one of the aforementioned old ladies. She didn't know how to. I
remember that, yes.
And she passed me the paperwork and I helped her do it. I talked her through it. It was a really nice little moment. Nubia Net, going back to Santa, to my mum's disappointment. I never believed in Santa. I learned in the first grade by making a boy cry. Just play along or keep my mouth shut. Just
early knowledge. Good job.
You know what, T-Duck, this is going to be so powerful, isn't it? The lies we tell our children. We do really need you standing by at the end of every show, James, to help people through these issues that come up. Indeed, we do. And I think Pete's been helping Nubianet with some more Portugal plans here. Mr. S, indeed, we do live on a quinta. It's beautiful, especially during the spring and autumn, and lovely by the pool in the summer. The community here is by far the best, though. Ooh.
Just end that with, in my experience, and it's absolutely accurate.
Yeah, I think Pete can go with that. Thank you, James, for what you're saying. Here we go. It's not the criticism, but rather the way it is done sometimes. Well, there you go. That's exactly what we're talking about, isn't it? Some people just cannot criticize without making us Portuguese look like a bunch of idiots. Well, you only have to look at the Portugal news comments for that sort of thing. And I think social media in general, and this is it's a problem, isn't it, with the medium? You know, the medium is the message is the medium. When you have only those few words, it would seem, to express yourself in a constricted digital platform, we get a lot of this sort of thing that you're talking about, João F. And I would like to think that whilst we still do that from time to time, we also make good and we clean up, which I think is a recurring theme, not just for how we communicate and relate to our Portuguese hosts, but how we talk to our kids about the lies we tell them.
And I have to say, again, in my experience, if a new parent tells you how ugly their baby is, you don't have to get on board and agree with them.
Okay.
Matter of fact, it's probably a good idea not to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on. No, that's not true. Oh.
You look at glad he's not my baby.
Poor planning on your part does not necessarily constitute an emergency on my part. Oh, there you go. Ancient project manager saying. And that's how these project manager types, isn't it? And IT people stay cool. They're very good at those boundaries and borders, which we haven't even talked about yet. But this is borders and boundaries, isn't it? It's like, okay, I hear you. I see it's tricky for you and very important for you.
Human boundaries, when to criticize, when not. That's a boundary for sure.
Yep. We'll get into that in just a moment. Is the mayor from Brazil? If not, there shouldn't be a way you could hurt yourself. Well, that's context. We needed context there.
Yes. You're out of order again. So
yes, we won't look for it just now. We've got other things to do. Right. A lot of us women are bigger than our dance partners. We definitely missed out on the earlier conversation there. And hello, Marcus. Good morning to you. How much of our frustration at other people talking in line comes from our feeling about ourselves, not being able to speak the language well enough to understand what is being said?
That's a very legitimate possibility.
Yeah. For me, he continues, when I find myself getting angry at something, if I dig down, I'm usually just disappointed or angry with myself. But it is so much easier to be angry with something else.
Or you're experiencing a place where you've been injured in your past and it's bringing it up and you're mad at that. I don't want to have to look at that right now, or it hurts or whatever. But yeah, all of that. Yes.
Yep. Nice one. Cheers, Marcus. Thank you for being here this morning. Behaja, I do have a Beirão cocktail, which is lovely. Excellent news from Peter this morning. And exactly, if I see a line, I go do something else and come back later. Oh, stop it.
It's so logical.
Yes, stop it with your ease and grace right there.
Totally with you, Gene.
Yeah,
I'll get back to it later.
That is sort of being Portuguese about it as well.
Yes.
It is just like flowing and just like, okay. And you're right. I mean, it's not like there aren't many multi-banco machines, is it? I suppose it depends where you are, but there tend to be a few around the place. And there are more than you tend to realize as well. Like many things, and this is not a complaint, you might not
okay to complain.
you might not know that there are 8 multi-banco machines in that street, even though you can only see 3 of them. This does happen here. This does happen.
Yes. Well, and another thing that, to the credit of my experience with the Portuguese and multi-bancos, when there are 2, and sometimes it's a multi-banco and an ATM, and I was told as a foreigner coming in, don't use the ATM, it's going to cost you money, just use a multi-banco. And then I talked with Louise about getting my bus pass, and I wasn't going to that one. She said, you can use that one. I go, but that's an ATM. Can I do my bus? Yeah, you can do every multi-banco thing on an ATM. It's just when you exchange money, they might charge you for it. So anyway, I learned that. But when there's 2 machines, the Portuguese have, again, in my experience, they have adopted the single line waiting for the 2 service possibilities. Yes. So if both are taken, they're waiting, and one person moves, the person goes to that one. And then that person moves, and the next person goes to that one. If the person wants to go to the multi-banco and the ATM opens up, they defer to the person behind them and say, I'm waiting for the multi-banco. So it's very logical, makes sense, efficient, and it works well from that position. In the United States, everyone be like, I'm taking the next one, whatever it is. Or they would queue up in 2 lines and then get very frustrated because that one's moving faster and I chose this one. It's like, just make one. That sort of, I guess it's called red carpet service or whatever, where you choose one person for each next available thing makes just too much sense to me.
Or Alentejo style. You've seen that picture, haven't you, of the Alentejo Finanças where they put their shoes. They put their shoes in a queue, and then they go and sit down. And instead of taking a ticket, you just leave your shoes there, and that shows where your position is in the queue, which I think
someone's got to be behind them to kick those shoes forward from time to time.
Yes, I wonder. Yeah.
Or does the line just keep getting farther and farther away from the window?
I think at the worst times it does stretch back into Lisbon. But at least you can go off and do something else.
So many ways we could deal with this.
And it lends itself well to the cartoon series forthcoming. Morning, everyone from Portugal. Andrew, it's great to meet the Clan Munson. You say, excellent to see you. And we want to meet your lady and Alpha as well at some point, Andy. So maybe over here on the Silver Coast. Joao, if some people's problems is not standing in line, is actually not being the first in the line. That's some wisdom right there, isn't it?
And there's entitlement if you expect to be first all the time.
Oh, I say. Very good. Okay. Cheers, Joao. Great to see you this morning. Always great to have you here in the community and in the chat. We have, look, I found the composer of Redwood Highway.
Oh, nice.
Audio Nautics. So shout out to you, Audio Nautics, this morning. You have a picture there. I think you might be British, or if not British, you have visited Regent Street in London, which I think that is, going down towards Piccadilly Circus, and in a kind of pinky filter there. So thank you to you and all the wonderful work you do. And if you do want to play the tune that you hear when James is on, it is Redwood Highway by Audio Nautics, and we're very grateful to that composer there who made that track, who has some sort of connection with Regent Street in London, which I would have walked up and down, cycled up and down as a youth. A fine Regency architecture, I think that is, isn't it? And bedecked with Christmas decorations, and probably Santa at some point as well, which we've had mixed views about this morning.
Would you mind sending me that link on WhatsApp? Because I'd like to comment to the composer of that. So.
Yeah, all right. I will do that as we speak. We're going to talk about borders and also, we'll roll that into borders and boundaries because we have James here.
Borders and boundaries.
Borders and boundaries. And James, there you go. I'll do it now so don't forget. You've got dad jokes, I think visual mainly, for sharing.
I've got one in the early comments when I came in, and then the visual one. So
let's see. Well, we'll come back to those as well. But I must do the Learn About Portugal quiz question because that very nicely sets up the talk about borders this morning. And I also must press the right buttons to do so. Which
you don't want that idiot one here, no.
Don't want that right now. Okay, let's find it. I was asking everybody about their PT3, their positive, their negative, and their possibility there. Positive, a problema, and a possibility. We'll come. It's a nice little conversation starter. However, for this morning, we're going to the pinned thread this morning, which is the Learn About Portugal quiz for Monday, the 31st of July. Already. Monday, 31st of July, with talk about borders on the morning show today. Let's look at the Portugal-Spain border. Typo, I'll deal with that later, which is one of the oldest borders in the world, almost identical to the iteration of 1297 set out in the Treaty of Alcañiz. Our border with España is 754 miles long. That'll be 1,200 kilometers or thereabouts. The longest uninterrupted border, in fact, with the European Union, within the European Union. Free of border control since 95 because of the Schengen Agreement. It is not defined for 18 kilometers, 11 miles between the Caia River and Ribeira de Cuncush. The apathetically disputed status of this area, which will be Olivença, is now 200 years old, and a certain Cotomisto is perhaps the only other obvious border-based contention, a now non-existent microstate along the border. So a pretty easygoing border, I think you'll agree, between Portugal and Spain. Today's question then, what is the nickname of the Portugal-Spain border? Is it the Stripe? Is it La Raya? Is it Araya? Is it La Raya? Or is it the Perineo? And there you'll see, that's what you'll see when you go to the border. So
what does it mean to be an apathetic border?
Apathetically disputed, I think. Okay. You've got
they don't care?
Exactly.
Then why would they dispute it? Anyway.
Well, it's almost, I mean, I guess is that a tautology? But it is a dispute. It hasn't been settled.
I want to argue. Nah, never mind.
I think that's exactly what's going on, James, on that
Okay, then it's well used. That's how I understood it. I said, what?
There's 18 kilometers where it's like, I don't know. We haven't sorted this out yet. The Spanish think it's theirs. The Portuguese think it's ours. Uh,
I'll just keep walking along the border on my side till I decide whether I'm going to cross or not.
That's right. That's right. It's like, and 200 years later, it's like, should we sort it out this year?
Let's do it next year, maybe. Just not that
really
important to me. Okay.
Everything seems to be fine, which leads us into this whole thing about borders, doesn't it? I mean, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you when we talk about borders? Is it a bit like the thought you have, what nationality are you? I'm a citizen of the world. Never mind about all these borders and flags. I am here on this planet. How do you feel about borders?
Well, let's see. In a brief one-sentence answer or a 3-day convention, I think it's complex. My initial reaction to what do I think about borders is I think they're unnecessary. But then, if I look at politically, economically, and all the reasons that borders came into to exist in the first place, which is about primarily ownership, sovereignty over a certain piece of property, then I understand why they exist and why they're perceived as necessary. Then I go to animal behavior, nature itself, and also native cultures that seem to have an understanding of where it was okay to go and not to go without painting a line on the ground.
Yes.
And animals do the same by instinct or by whatever. When that male lion cub, it's time to go, he knows he's got to get out of there, and he leaves, and he just sort of keeps walking until he figures out where his space is, where it will work for him to be. He doesn't, and again, lacking at least the complexity of intelligence as we like to believe we have over all other animals. Painting lines on the ground, as I said, isn't really something they would do. But I think as humans, if we didn't have the need to own it and control it, we could operate that way as well. Just find a place, settle in where it works and not overcrowd and that kind of thing. But humans don't seem to have that. And I'm sure there are animal species that do the same. Matter of fact, I know there are, where they go and attack and have arguments over who belongs here and who doesn't. So I think in that regard, borders are kind of inevitable. I would like to see a little more freedom of movement, a little less concern with the needs of this imagined private space on the planet that I own. I think the Native Americans and probably native cultures around the world don't have a sense of ownership of the earth. There's more, the earth is our mother. It provides for us. We take care of it. We don't own it. But if we don't get along with that tribe, or we don't get along with those people, we got to give ourselves enough distance that we're not constantly trying to kill each other.
Fighting. Yes. Well, in terms of the German, Dutch, and Belgian tribes, they have this one here, which looks like quite a good solution. This is where, according to this article, travelador.com have given us this talking point this morning. And this is where Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands meet. And near the Dutch town of Waals, you can find the Waalsberg Hill and Forest, where the tri-point of the three countries are united. And this is very thoughtfully done, isn't it? There are 3 benches there, so people from those different places can play musical benches and maybe remove one of the benches when the music stops and fight. No, they can sit and look at each other.
And I'd be trying to stand right on top of that pillar so I could be in all 3 at the same time.
I'm sure you're not the only person to have fallen off.
Look at me!
Paramedic for the wise guy, please.
Another comic strip panel, a geologist on his hands and knees looking closely at the ground with a magnifying glass, trying to find that intersection.
Yeah, right. Because you say animals don't paint lines, but they drop their scent instead.
Well, there's that, yeah. They mark their trees and so on.
More organic. And I think if we had a Belgian, Dutch, and German man urinating on that stone every morning, just trying to make the line, that would be a little bit beneath us as human beings.
So borders, I guess, are just the human equivalent of pissing on the ground, pissing to claim our space.
I'm so glad we've come to this and
Yes.
that realization this morning. That was the moment I was waiting for. Thank you so much for that, James. But yes, that it would be one way of looking at it.
Well, our noses generally aren't good enough to pick up the scent, so we need something a little more tangible.
We do, don't we? So we've gone to paint rather than urine in this modern age. And that's maybe why this person on the Portugal side of the border here is getting out of their vehicle to come and urinate on the...
This is my territory. Stay out.
But there is someone taking the photograph who might be doing the same thing.
But you stay in your own territory.
Get back.
See, initially, I didn't see the border as going horizontal. I thought the border was on one side, or, well, I guess it is. But the arrows, that's what it was. I thought the road was the border. And I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. They're both pointing like, go to that one.
Oh, I think the border is where the arrows are pointing to, isn't it? And it looks like Spain have tarmacked their road more recently than Portugal have.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we go vertically in the picture, then you see the demarcation on the asphalt, which would suggest that the location of the arrows is where the border is.
Correct.
So
yeah.
that would make sense of the Portugal sign. But I was seeing it the other way around, where the road itself was the border.
Yes. Well, this
anyway.
would give the game away. If I read this bit out, this would give the game away on the quiz this morning. But I think that's so lovely, isn't it? There is no border point there. People are being trusted, aren't they, to step back and forth willy-nilly without supervision on this.
And I think it goes to my sensibilities about borders. It's like it's just a figment of your imagination. Here, it's more tangible because the asphalt changes. But where's the border?
And here's another way of doing it.
I'm rather apathetic about that.
Like we don't care that much. And interestingly as well, nothing's been built there, has it? I mean, they are observing the border rather than building a service station or a checkpoint or anything else. It's like, okay, we're Portuguese, so we're going to set back a little bit over our side, and the Spanish will be doing the same. That
would be a great spot for one of those three-dimensional artists to paint something that looks like you're going through a wall.
Yes,
that would be a lot of fun.
I think we're only halfway through here, so we might still have that in this article. But here's how you can zip line from Spain to Portugal.
It's really tough getting back, though.
Well, I was just thinking that how you can't have it going both ways with the zip line, can you? Right. So, yep, you read that right. It says here, in the Iberian Peninsula of Western Europe, there exists a zip line that you can take from Spain to Portugal. The zip line runs from the Spanish city of Sanlúcar de Guadiana across the River Guadiana to Alcotim in Portugal. The Guadiana River, or the Odiana, is an international river that forms part of the border. I'm not going to read that out and give the game away. Zip line runs for 720 meters across the river with participants capable of reaching speeds of 70 kilometers per hour.
Woohoo!
That looks pretty terrifying, I've got to say.
Is that the Spanish suggesting that the Portuguese go home? I don't know. It's so easy to go the other way, but so difficult to get back on that zip line.
I think you can get the boat, can't you? It's all been figured out, including lunch, I am sure. Looks fantastic to me.
It's a non-violent warfare going on there. Zip on over and boat on back.
Yeah, and it's just all happy and easy going as the Portuguese-Spanish border tends to be. There you go. We've got Denmark and Sweden there with a beautiful bridge, not unlike our wonderful Vasco da Gama bridge, a little reminiscent.
They do some pretty amazing bridges over there in Scandinavia.
Like they've got to, though, haven't they? If they want to get anywhere. And here's a border on a bridge there with somebody with a foot in each country there.
Make up your mind.
Poland and Germany border. A lot of these are just so quiet and aren't they?
Yes.
And there's that looks interesting from an aircraft, doesn't it? That particular one.
It looks like something
a very bendy
aliens.
river as it snakes along the two. It does, doesn't it? It looks like it should be where these alleged UFOs are landing or making their home here.
Yeah, it just has that sort of
Brazil
feel to
and
it.
Paraguay bridge. It does.
Look at how that arch just
beautiful
frames that mountain. Yeah. That's amazing. They gave a lot of attention to intersections of borders, I noticed.
They thought about that, haven't they? They thought about that.
Yes, that was well framed.
Yes, well,
I did notice there were a lot of them.
The one that
okay. Intersections of borders.
Yes.
That's all. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's as good a point as any. And it takes the earlier one a stage further, doesn't it? And I love this one a lot. Austria, Hungary, Slovakia. Well done. This little table can be found not far from the Slovakian capital of Bratislava and over the border to Austria. This table is, in fact, another tri-point that makes the meeting point between the edges of Austria, Slovakia, and Hungary. And you can break bread with the people of those countries. Not that anyone's doing that in this picture.
And if I was there, people would saying, James, get off the table. That's what would be
get
happening.
Off the table. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Sit down, you idiot.
I'd just be spinning around. Whee! Look how fast I'm going from country to country.
Okay, be careful now. Yes, don't fall off the table. Here's the guy who fell off that table.
Stamp my passport.
Sitting down at this table means you literally have an international snack or lunch with other people around this table. There's not much information about this table, so we cannot say when or who decided to build it. However, the concept is fantastic. So hopefully, James, that is the direction of travel for humanity that we do. I mean, they are useful from the point of view of management, aren't they? I suppose, for one thing. But, borders, a bit like boundaries. When you have boundaries as a human being, it's a matter of management, isn't it? Managing something that would otherwise go ignored at our peril or ignored, for some sort of negative reason. So we observe it and we work with it, and hopefully that will be the limit of how borders and boundaries will be.
Well, one could make an argument that boundaries are just untangible or not non-physical borders. So it requires a certain degree of mindfulness to know where it's okay to step over and where it's not. Where is that boundary? What boundaries do I have? Because I don't have a sign that points people where that boundary is.
Yeah.
You're freezing.
Yes, sorry, I think we've got a bit of lag, haven't we?
I don't.
Yeah. I think it's mutual. I'll shut a few applications down. We should be okay. Let's see what folks are saying before we go to those dad jokes to conclude this morning. Girls dancing together again. A bit of missing context. I don't know. We missed a chunk of the show, James, while we were chatting there.
Yes, about dancing and larger women and all kinds of things around that.
I feel like I missed out of it there. Carl, regarding the border, there are two villages that are divided by the border, Rio de Honor and in the Trás-os-Montes and Marco in Alentejo. And actually in the article, there are some pictures of a restaurant where basically you can sit and eat with people right on the border as well, which is a nice little idea.
There's a place between Canada and the United States where the border goes right through the middle of a city, a town.
Yes, I think we've got that picture in the article where it seems it goes to a community center and you can sit in a hall of some sort, either in America or Canada, depending on which you prefer. And it all seems pretty easy going there.
Where's your passport? You have to, if you want to come to this side of the auditorium, you need to present your passport and have it stamped. Like
that's right. That's right. Yeah, it's okay. I don't really want a coffee. I can't be bothered.
Could you just hand me a donut?
Nope. Hadrian built a beautiful wall to keep us Scots from England. There's also a picture of Hadrian's Wall in that article as well. It doesn't look like it's capable of stopping many people. Territoriality.
And Hadrian was a strong fellow lifting all those stones.
He did ever so well. Territoriality is rampant throughout all life. It is. I mean, there's no question about that, is it? It is a part of us. And
not just human, all life. It's true. There's a sense of where we belong.
And in permaculture terms, the most interesting things happen where those territories and borders meet each other as well. And that's us individually, isn't it? Where the different parts of ourselves meet each other, where we meet each other as separate beings on these borders, and where water and land meet. I mean, there's no question about it. As we can have a sort of ideological, philosophical musing about borders, but they are absolutely integral to life. And the theme of the morning seems to be what's important and what's interesting for humans and in life is to be in the conversation about it, right? What does it mean? What do we understand from it? And
find the watering hole for humans.
Yes, borders mean documentation. The state requires a borderline to enable taxes, laws, defense, etc. I've noticed that.
Yes.
Sarah, morning to you, bon dia, popping in at the last minute. Sorry, I've been working like a crazy
Wow,
person.
did you miss a lot?
Absolutely. Recommend you catch up.
Watch the replay.
Yes. Great to have you here, Sarah. I think every border should only be indicated by a welcome sign.
I like that.
I do like you are leaving also, though. You know, you are. I hope you enjoyed your stay. That's nice to see.
Just have to scratch off the thank God before you are leaving.
Yes. Nunu's here as well. Thanks to you.
No, hola, bom dia.
Dear mate.
Another one of my wonderful Portuguese friends that I hope you were on the show when I was expressing my appreciation for those friends. You're absolutely included in that.
Hey, you've just reminded me. I forgot to say this Thursday's Expats Portugal webinar is things. It really connects because it's things I wish I'd known when I was moving to Portugal. So that might go into some complainy territory. It might not. But if you want to take part in that, if anyone watching says, do you know what? I've never been invited or haven't been available for an earlier Expats Portugal webinar. If you fancy, just drop me a line. If you'd like to talk about things you wished you'd known when you were moving to Portugal, come and join us and be part of the panel on Thursday evening. Drop me a line, 913-590-303. It's on the screen. In that zip line, says Antonio, you depart from Spain at 10 and arrive in Portugal at 1 minute past 9.
That's a long zipline ride.
70 kilometers per hour as well. I'm sure it feels very quick.
It's a time zone. I get it. Yes.
It's great, isn't it?
I understand the joke.
Friends, Nuno, Antonio P. Andrew, a happy week to you all. Thanks, Nuno, for that.
Para ti também.
We had to wait until our son's girlfriend got a little used to us before we included a zipline family outing. Don't think she'll do it again. So the Yermans did that one. Amazing. There's a ferry going back to the beginning of the zip line. We've done it. That's amazing. Were you able to take your bicycles on the zip line as well?
And if you've got kids, you could make it a week-long vacation.
Yes.
Down, take the boat. Up, down, take the boat. Up, down.
Yeah.
Can we do it again, Dad?
Are we there yet? I have nearly another 30 seconds. I have the joyous task of installing Prof. Eusebio's left-hand drive headlights this morning. Requires dismantling the front of the car. My goodness.
Ooh, that's a fun time for you.
Yeah, he's living the dream. Regards to the prof from us all. Please pass on our love to Eusebio this morning. And there's been years since I last used a zipline, probably in the Boy Scouts. Well, if we have a gathering there over the Guadiana River one day, you can do it again, Antonio F. What fun that'll be.
Whee!
Oh, Pete's making a claim here. I had an accident in the Tesla last week. Could you send me a recommendation for a Tesla repair shop? Sorry to hear about that, Pete. Right, dad jokes then at 10:05. I can't believe it, James. We've been chatting away. Did you see this one earlier on?
I did.
Do you like the new Twitter logo?
Yeah, I immediately thought of name goes out of my head the second I'm trying to remember it, but yes.
Okay, all right. Well, you can take responsibility for your dad joke here, and I'll try and find the other one as well while you're doing that.
Okay, it's right after my Bon Dia entry in the text, but so Spock, in his very logical way, says, "What do you know about atoms?" And Kirk, after thinking thoughtfully, says, "Very little." And Spock says, "Besides that."
Stop it, you idiot! That works very well. And
it does. Pretty much any of my dad jokes, yes.
T-Duck sent me another one of those Trekkie jokes, and I said, I had this realization. I said to him, "There's no end to these, is there?" And he sent me a message like, "I'm afraid not." Yeah, can you remember your dad joke as well? Because we've had so much chat this morning, I can't actually find it.
Go to the very beginning, right after Thunderduck's entries.
Let's start.
Where I come in, I say Bon Dia, and then I throw dad joke warning, DJW.
Oh, there
it is.
Yeah, okay. Go on.
She was only a whiskey maker, but he loved her still.
That's very good, actually. Pete has one as well. Which part of Devon do Daleks come from? You need to be a Whovian and have some grasp of a British geography, I think. Exeter, mate. Exeter is a town in... Well, I've lived there, actually. Exeter, mate. Exeter, mate. No, he's left.
It's definitely for British sense of humor.
You had to live there, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You had to see the TV show.
I go,
Is Doctor Who not a thing in America?
Is what not a thing?
Clearly not. Doctor Who.
Oh no, I don't want to say the all-inclusive we, but I am familiar with Doctor Who.
Okay.
And I always get it confused for a movie. It was Doctor something with Peter Sellers, I think, years ago.
Oh, okay.
But there was a TV series in England, yes?
Yes,
Doctor Who?
It is. And
Or
was.
is, okay.
Yes, it was something that terrified me as a child. Can't possibly read that out, Pete, but thank you very much. Let's go to T-Ducks finally, or the other one, Peter. When cats die, did they go to purgatory? That's very good. Incense jokes should be censored. Oh, wow. And if you let Polly out the cage, so to speak, in church, you'll still have to sit in your own pew.
Pew!
All right. Very good, everybody. Very good. Here we are, still hanging out.
So we went from mew to pew.
Very good. He doesn't just throw this together, you know. Good stuff.
Very well orchestrated. Choreographed.
A final thought for us today, the Frasier of Good Morning Portugal.
Stop complaining, you idiot!
All right, James. Well, have a great...
Be mindful about what you are called to complain about. Just be mindful. Look at what's it coming from. Do I really need to say this? And if I do need to say it, why is it so compelling? It's a lot of work, as my mom said. Phew, that's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, James. Okay, well, there's your homework until next week. Nubianette loves Doctor Who, so there you go. And Tita was watching. Very good. Was watching Doctor Knock Knock. I was watching Doctor Who on PBS 40 years ago. My goodness, I was terrified as a little 2-year-old. I think. Pretty much peeing my nappy watching Doctor Who. So that's been a perennial, hasn't it, for sure, on British TV. So yes, some popularity over there in the United States. James, been lovely hanging out with you. Have a great day, my friend. Have a great week.
Absolutely.
And I'll see you next week. And we'll give you a nice big round of applause to see you on your way. Cheers, mate. Take care and bye for now. And thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GMP morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. The little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GMP.
Good morning, Portugal, and I'd like to welcome you to another fantastic day.
Hey, Gumpers.